Hey guys, welcome back to this channel, The Voice of the Past. In this video, we will unfold the untold story of the Kensington family feud, a rivalry that turned deadly. Before continuing, if you are new into this channel, please consider subscribing to this channel. Let's start. In the quaint town of Maplewood, nestled between lush hills and clear flowing rivers, the Kensingtons had long been a name synonymous with wealth and power. The family's sprawling estate dominated the town's landscape, much like their influence permeated every facet of its society. The current patriarch, Charles Kensington, was a man of formidable presence, known equally for his sharp business acumen as for his ruthless dealings. However, beneath the surface of this affluent family lay a web of animosity and rivalry that had festered for generations. The root of all discord was the contentious relationship between Charles's two sons, Adrian and Michael Kensington. Adrian, the elder, was a carbon copy of his father, ambitious, calculated, and cold. Michael, on the other hand, was his antithesis, warm-hearted, idealistic, and compassionate. The brothers' rivalry began in childhood, but escalated dramatically after the mysterious death of their mother, Evelyn Kensington. Evelyn had been the glue holding the family together, and her unexplained passing left a void that no amount of money or power could fill. The police had ruled it an accident, but whispers of foul play circulated within the town, fueled by the family's notorious history. As years passed, the tension reached a boiling point when Charles announced his decision to step down, igniting a fierce competition between Adrian and Michael for control of the Kensington Empire. The elder Kensington had devised a series of challenges to test his son's abilities to lead, each more perilous and cunning than the last. These tests were not just a means to determine the successor, but also a way to uphold the brutal legacy of the Kensingtons. Adrian, ever the strategist, seemed to navigate these challenges with a disturbing ease, often at the expense of others around him. Michael, struggling to keep up, found himself increasingly sidelined, his ideals clashing with the cutthroat nature of the competition. One chilly autumn evening, the brothers were summoned to the old boathouse by the river, a place that held many childhood memories but now served as the arena for their final test. As they arrived, the tension was palpable, each man acutely aware that tonight would change everything. Charles stood by the fireplace, his eyes gleaming with an unreadable expression. "Tonight, one of you will prove worthy of the Kensington Legacy," he announced, his voice echoing off the wooden walls. The challenge was simple, yet sinister. Navigate the treacherous river to retrieve a family heirloom, placed on the opposite bank, and return before dawn. The first to return would be declared the winner. As they prepared their boats under the moonlit sky, a sudden unease gripped Michael. The river, swollen from recent rains, looked menacing, its currents stronger than he remembered. He glanced at Adrian, who was methodically securing his oars, a determined glint in his eye. "Be careful, Michael," Adrian said, his voice devoid of the usual disdain. "This river is unforgiving." With those parting words, they set off into the dark waters, unaware that the true danger lay not in the river's fierce currents, but in the shadows of their past, ready to surface with deadly consequences. As the brothers paddled away, Charles's silhouette remained by the fire, watching the dark waters swallow the only two pieces of his legacy. A smile crept across his face, a smile that spoke of secrets buried deep and gambits yet to unfold. The game had just begun. As Adrian and Michael disappeared into the ink-black night, the river's currents played tricks on their perception, each swirl and eddy magnifying their growing unease. Adrian, ever focused and relentless, maneuvered his boat with precision, using his keen sense of the river's dynamics to his advantage. Michael, however, found his thoughts drifting, the ghostly whispers of past conflicts with his brother clouding his judgment. Meanwhile, back at the estate, Charles remained by the fireplace, the crackling fire casting shadows that danced like specters on the walls. His mind wandered through the corridors of his own dark past, reminiscing about the power struggles that had defined his reign, a legacy of conquest and sacrifice. Back on the river, Michael's boat suddenly lurched as a strong current caught it off guard, snapping him back to the present. He realized the perilous nature of this test. It was not just about strength or cunning, but survival. Regaining control, he pushed forward, his resolve hardening. Up ahead, Adrian reached the midpoint of the river, where the currents converged. Here, the heirloom, a silver locket that had belonged to their mother, was secured on a buoy. As he approached, Adrian's thoughts turned to his mother, whose death had never fully been explained. The locket, engraved with the Kensington crest, seemed to mock him with its sheen in the moonlight. Grabbing it, he felt a surge of victory, quickly overshadowed by a nagging suspicion. Turning his boat around, Adrian scanned the dark waters for Michael, who was now approaching the buoy. The younger Kensington's face was set, a mix of determination and fear evident in his eyes. As Michael reached for the locket, his hand brushed Adrian's, a fleeting touch that unleashed a torrent of childhood memories. Playing by the river, their mother's laughter echoing in the air, a time before the darkness. With the locket secured, Michael turned his boat around, and the brothers began their treacherous journey back. The river seemed even more menacing now, as if aware of the stakes at hand. Adrian, with his usual cold efficiency, paddled strongly, but his mind was troubled. He couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to this test than their father had revealed. Suddenly, a scream pierced the night. Adrian turned sharply, his heart racing. A few meters back, Michael's boat had capsized, the strong currents overwhelming it. For a moment, Adrian hesitated, torn between the urge to win at all costs and the instinct to save his brother. Making a decision, Adrian turned his boat around, paddling furiously against the current. Reaching Michael, who struggled to keep afloat, Adrian extended his hand. "Grab on," he shouted, his voice laced with urgency and an unexpected fear of losing his brother to the river's wrath. As they worked together to right the capsized boat, the competitive animosity that had defined their relationship seemed to dissolve, washed away by the river's cold waters. They paddled back in silence, side by side, each lost in thought about the past and the uncertain future. Reaching the shore as dawn broke, Charles awaited them, his expression unreadable. "You both returned," he stated, a hint of surprise in his tone. "Together." The brothers exchanged glances, the unspoken truths of the night hanging heavily between them. They had started the evening as rivals, but emerged as survivors, bonded by a newfound respect forged under duress. Charles walked towards them, the heirloom locket in his hand. "This was your mother's," he said, his voice softening. "She would have wanted you to have it, not as a prize, but as a reminder." As the sun rose over Maplewood, casting light on the old boathouse, the shadows receded, but the secrets of the Kensington family lingered, waiting for the right moment to surface. As the new day dawned, casting golden hues over the estate, the atmosphere at the Kensington mansion was palpably different. Breakfast was a quiet affair. The usual clatter of silverware and chatter was replaced by contemplative silence. Adrian and Michael, still drying off from their nocturnal ordeal, sat opposite each other, each lost in his own thoughts. Charles observed his sons from the head of the table. The events of last night had unsettled him more than he cared to admit. It was rare for him to second-guess the machinations he'd put into play, yet seeing his sons collaborate against the very currents he'd hoped would drive them apart made him reconsider the legacy he was cultivating. After breakfast, Charles invited his sons into his study, a room lined with dark oak bookshelves and the heavy scent of leather and aged paper. He settled behind his massive desk, the morning light casting a halo around his silvery hair. "I've been thinking," Charles began, his voice carrying a gravity that immediately captured Adrian and Michael's attention. "Last night, you both showed qualities that are essential to lead this family. Adrian, your determination and strategic mind are invaluable, and Michael, your compassion and resilience are qualities this family desperately needs." The brothers exchanged a surprised look, unaccustomed to hearing their father speak of their virtues. "I've made a decision," Charles continued, his eyes locking onto each of his sons in turn. "The leadership of Kensington Enterprises will not go to just one of you. It will be shared. You will both lead, together." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Shared leadership was unheard of in the Kensington dynasty, where power struggles defined the succession rituals. "But how will that work, Father?" Adrian asked, skepticism lacing his tone. "You know as well as I do that our visions for the company are vastly different." Charles leaned forward, his gaze intense. "That's precisely why it must be you two. The company needs both your visions to survive the changing times. You must find a way to blend your strengths, not let them drive you apart." Michael nodded slowly, considering his father's words. He had always believed that the company could do more to give back to the community, a vision starkly different from Adrian's focus on expansion and profit. As they left the study, the brothers walked through the familiar halls of their childhood home, each absorbed in the monumental task ahead. It was a challenge that neither had anticipated, yet as they stepped out into the crisp morning air, a tentative hope began to take root. Over the next few weeks, Adrian and Michael began the arduous process of co-leadership. Board meetings that were once battlegrounds saw vigorous debates followed by collaborative decisions. The employees of Kensington Enterprises watched in cautious optimism as the company slowly started to embody the best of both brothers' ideals. However, beneath the surface of this newfound partnership, the seeds of old rivalries and unspoken resentments lingered. Whispers of discontent and suspicion started to stir among the board members, fueled by those loyal to one brother over the other. Unbeknownst to Adrian and Michael, a plot was slowly forming in the shadows, aiming to unravel their fragile alliance. One evening, as Michael reviewed documents in his office, a letter slipped under his door caught his attention. The envelope was plain, but the message inside was anything but. "The truth about your mother's death is not what it seems. Meet me at the old boathouse at midnight. Alone." Michael's heart raced as he read the message over and over. The mystery of their mother's death had always haunted him, a dark cloud over the family's legacy. Now, the promise of uncovering the truth was too compelling to ignore. As midnight approached, Michael made his way to the boathouse, the night air thick with the scent of impending rain. The boathouse loomed ahead, its silhouette a stark reminder of last night's trials. What he would discover there had the potential to change everything, not just for the future of Kensington Enterprises, but for the very soul of the Kensington family. Under the cloak of night, Michael approached the old boathouse with a mixture of trepidation and resolve. The wooden structure, usually so benign in the daylight, now seemed to brood under the moon's gaze, its shadows deep and full of secrets. As he neared the entrance, the river beside him whispered with the secrets of the past, each wave a murmured tale. Inside, the boathouse was shrouded in darkness. Michael's hand found the old, rusty switch. And with a flick, the dim overhead light buzzed to life, casting an eerie glow. The room was empty except for a single chair in the center, a figure seated, silhouetted against the sparse light. Michael, the figure spoke, the voice unmistakably belonging to Joseph Barrow, the family's longtime lawyer and confidant of their late mother. Thank you for coming. Joseph? Michael's voice echoed slightly, tinged with surprise and suspicion. What is this about? What do you know about my mother's death? Joseph rose slowly, his features coming into the light. I've held on to this secret for too long at your father's request. But the truth deserves to be known, especially by you and Adrian. Michael's heart pounded in his chest, his earlier resolve hardening into a sharp edge. Tell me. It was no accident, Michael, Joseph began, his eyes reflecting a deep, intrinsic sadness. Your mother discovered something dangerous, evidence of your father's dealings that threatened to unravel not just the business, but the entire family. She planned to confront him, to force him to change his ways. The air seemed to grow colder as Joseph paused, the weight of his words sinking in. Your father couldn't let that happen. The night she died, they argued by the river. I was there. I saw. He pushed her. It was made to look like she slipped, but it was no accident. Michael staggered back, the room spinning as the foundations of his life crumbled around him. His mother, the family's gentle heart, hadn't just slipped away. She had been taken, and by the very man who had raised them under the guise of strength and honor. Why keep this a secret? Why now? Michael's voice cracked with the strain of his emotions. Your father threatened everything I held dear to keep me quiet. I believed it was for the best, to preserve the family. But watching you and Adrian last night, seeing you work together, I realized the real strength of the Kensington legacy isn't power or control, but the truth and how you face it. Michael nodded, his mind racing with the implications of this revelation. Thank you, Joseph. I need to think about what to do next. Leaving the boathouse, Michael felt a chilling breeze sweep across the river, as if whispering approval for the truths finally aired. He walked back to the mansion, each step heavier than the last, knowing that the dawn would bring decisions that could alter the course of the Kensington legacy forever. The following morning, with the sun barely cresting the horizon, Michael approached Adrian, who was already in his study, buried in paperwork. Adrian, we need to talk. It's about Mother, Michael began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Adrian looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to concern. What about her? Michael relayed the night's revelations, watching closely as his brother's face went through a myriad of emotions, from disbelief to anger, and finally, to a pained acceptance. We need to confront him, Adrian. Together. We can't let this stand. Adrian nodded, a grim resolve settling over his features. Let's do it. For Mother. For the family. The brothers found Charles in his office, the morning light casting long shadows across the floor. As they entered, he looked up, a flicker of unease crossing his features. Father, Adrian started, his voice cold. We know about Mother. We know what you did. Charles's face paled, the mask of the patriarch cracking as the walls of his empire began to close in. The confrontation that followed would shake the very foundations of Kensington Enterprises and the family at its heart. In the heavy air of Charles Kensington's ornate office, the tension was palpable as Adrian and Michael confronted their father. Charles sat back in his chair, the lines of his face hardening as he absorbed the accusations from his sons. Do you think you understand everything from a few whispered secrets? Charles's voice was calm, but there was a sharpness to it that belied his outward composure. Your mother's death was a tragedy, one that I have lived with every day. But was it an accident, Father? Michael's voice trembled with emotion. Joseph told us everything. We know about the argument. We know you pushed her. Charles's eyes darted between his sons, a flicker of guilt passing fleetingly before he regained control. It was an accident, but not how you think. Yes, we argued, fiercely so. Your mother wanted to take you away from all this. He gestured broadly to the surroundings, to end the Kensington legacy of power and control. It escalated, and yes, there was a push, but I never intended. His voice trailed off, leaving a heavy silence. Adrian, usually the more composed of the two, slammed his fist on the desk. Intended or not, you covered it up. You let us believe a lie and you kept Joseph silent. How many others know, Father? How deep does this deceit run? Charles looked up, his gaze hardened like flint. You do not understand the burdens of this family, what it takes to maintain our status. I did what I believed necessary. Michael shook his head, disgust and sorrow mingling in his expression. Necessary? It's never necessary to betray the ones you love, to build an empire on lies. What are we if we forsake our morals for power? The room fell quiet, the only sound the distant ticking of an antique clock, marking the passage of time and, perhaps, the end of an era. Adrian stepped closer to the desk, his voice lower. What do we do now, Father? Do we go public? Tear down everything you've built? Or is there another way? Charles leaned forward, his eyes searching his sons' faces. I spent my life building an empire for you both, to ensure that no force could ever threaten the Kensingtons. I will do whatever it takes to protect this family. Michael and Adrian exchanged a look, an unspoken agreement passing between them. Then step down, Michael said. Retire, and let us rebuild the Kensington name, not on the shadows of old sins, but on new truths. We will lead, together. Charles's shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of him. He nodded slowly, the weight of his world shifting visibly onto the shoulders of his sons. Very well. I will announce my retirement effective immediately. The future of Kensington Enterprises and the Kensington Legacy is yours now. As they left the office, the brothers knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. The company would need restructuring, and the truth about their mother's death, while not disclosed publicly, would need to be addressed with those involved in the cover-up. In the weeks that followed, Adrian and Michael worked tirelessly, their different strengths complementing each other in ways neither had anticipated. The company's direction shifted towards more sustainable and community-focused projects, reflecting Michael's influence, while Adrian ensured that the transition did not compromise their market position. Yet, as they navigated their new roles, the shadows of the past were never far behind. Whispers in dark corners of boardrooms spoke of discontent and schemes, of old allies of their father who viewed the brothers' new way of leading with suspicion and disdain. One late evening, as Michael reviewed security reports in his office, a cryptic note caught his attention, slipped under his door. Watch the shadows, for they grow long under the new sun. The handwriting was unknown, the message clear. Not all were pleased with the changes at Kensington Enterprises. As Michael pondered the note, he realized that while they had won a significant battle, the war for the soul of Kensington Enterprises was just beginning. The winds of change swept through Kensington Enterprises, bringing with them both fresh hope and old resentments. As Michael and Adrian navigated their leadership, they were constantly reminded of the delicate balance between innovation and tradition. The cryptic note Michael had found was a stark warning that their new path was fraught with hidden dangers. As months passed, the brothers worked to solidify their positions, winning over skeptics with a blend of transparency, innovative projects, and a renewed focus on ethical practices. Yet, despite their efforts, the undercurrents of dissent remained, fueled by those loyal to their father's old ways. One crisp autumn evening, the board convened for a critical meeting to discuss the future direction of the company. Rumors of a coup had reached Michael and Adrian, whispers of a faction led by Donovan Pierce, a longtime board member and a staunch ally of their father. As they entered the boardroom, the tension was palpable. Faces that once greeted them with smiles now offered nothing but cold, calculating stares. Donovan Pierce stood, his posture rigid, signaling the battle lines were drawn. "Ladies and gentlemen," Donovan began, his voice echoing slightly in the hushed room, "we are at a crossroads. Under the leadership of the young Kensingtons, we have strayed far from the proven paths that made this company great. It's time we consider a return to the strategies that have ensured our dominance." Adrian stepped forward, his demeanor calm but authoritative. "The paths you speak of led us down dark roads, Donovan. It's time for a new era, one where we don't have to choose between profit and principles." A murmur rippled through the room. Donovan smirked slightly, a glint of challenge in his eyes. "And what if the board disagrees with you, Mr. Kensington?" Before Adrian could reply, Michael intervened. "Then let's put it to a vote. Let the board decide the future of Kensington Enterprises." The vote was tense, each member casting their ballot in silence. When the count came, it was a narrow victory for Michael and Adrian. The room buzzed with the undercurrents of both relief and frustration. As the board members filed out, Donovan lingered, his stare piercing. "You may have won today, but keep your eyes open. Not everyone is content to follow into the unknown." In the weeks that followed, the brothers fortified their leadership, implementing new security measures and closely monitoring the company's internal communications. They knew the battle wasn't over. It had merely shifted into a new phase. Late one evening, as the first snow of winter began to fall, Michael received an anonymous tip about a secret meeting being held at an off-site location, a last-ditch effort by the dissenters to rally support. Without hesitation, he and Adrian decided to confront the challenge head-on. Arriving unannounced at the meeting, the brothers were met with shocked faces. Adrian, with Michael at his side, addressed the covert gathering. "We know not everyone agrees with our direction, but subterfuge will not be tolerated. We are all in this together, and it's time we truly acted like it." Their bold strategy paid off. Faced with their unwavering commitment to transparency and unity, many dissenters began to waver, their resolve crumbling. The meeting ended not with a coup, but with hesitant yet constructive dialogue. Months turned into years, and under Michael and Adrian's leadership, Kensington Enterprises not only prospered, but became a leader in ethical business practices. Their mother's locket, now prominently displayed in Michael's office, served as a constant reminder of their duty to truth and integrity. In a twist no one could have predicted, the brothers' greatest challenge had forged their strongest bond. The Kensington Legacy, once marked by secrecy and betrayal, had been transformed, proving that even in the darkest waters a new light can emerge, guiding the way forward. With the past finally laid to rest, Michael and Adrian looked to the future, ready to face whatever challenges it might bring together. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more stories like this, hit that like button and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And let me know on which topic you would like to see stories next. And check out these other stories you might enjoy. See you in the next one. Till then, take care and goodbye.